Hey guys, and welcome to Tnashi's Movie Corner, and it's the movie news segment, where once a week I bring you some of the stories that I've heard throughout the week, and various studio stories, various movie stories, what have you, even some TV sometimes, and just give my thoughts on it. So let's go ahead and start off with the box office recap. So coming in at number 1 was Batman v Superman with 52.4 million. That's about a 68% drop off of its opening week. We'll get into that in just a minute. Coming in at number 2 is Zootopia, hanging on really strong at 20 million. Coming in at number 3 was Big Fat Greek Wedding 2 with 11.1 million. Coming in at number 4, God's Not Dead with 8.1 million. And coming in at number 5 was Miracles from Heaven with 7.5 million. So, I did not do any... I didn't know where everything was going to end up coming in. I thought Batman v Superman would be number 1. I thought Zootopia would definitely be up there. It's had a big drop-off. It's definitely had a big drop-off. And I think it's going to be fine this weekend. I could be wrong, especially if it continues to have a big drop-off. But I don't think there's too much coming out this weekend. And until Jungle Book comes out, which is this next week, I don't think there's going to be too much to really fight over it. So I think it's going to probably remain in the top 5, if not in number 1. But yeah, that's a big drop. There's any number of reasons to try to explain what kind of drop it has, because you have people that aren't interested in it because they weren't interested in Man of Steel. You have people that saw it once and didn't like the movie. That happens. You have people that go based on the critic reviews, and the critic reviews have been, well, harsh, really negative overall. And that happens, too. So, and you have people that just weren't interested to begin with. There's a number of reasons. The runtime doesn't really help in many cases because you're limited on the number of showings that you can have at a theater, so that obviously affects it in a way. But yeah, and that's probably one of the reasons why they cut it down from a 3-hour film to a 2.5-hour film. All that being said, there's no way to fully know what it is. I'm sure some people didn't like it. I've said my piece on it. But looking at Zootopia remaining in there, I think that's fantastic. And even with Jungle Book coming out, again, not this weekend, but the following week, I think it's gonna remain. I think it is. I think it has real good legs, and it's gonna hold on. Big Fat Greek Wedding 2 didn't do so hot, and God's Not Dead 2 didn't do as hot. But then God's Not Dead 2 had probably a minimal budget, so I don't really see that being too bad for them. At least they made top 5. But I find it all pretty interesting. I didn't think Big Fat Greek Wedding 2 would do that well. And again, critic response has not been favorable for that movie. So, yeah, it is what it is. But, yeah, all that said and done, I am going to attempt, and probably fail, to make my predictions for this upcoming week. So, let's see. What do we have? The only 2 major releases we have are The Boss and Hardcore Henry. And it's very interesting because those are both kind of select markets. So, pinning one to come in at number 1, between those 2 and between Batman v Superman, I want to say Batman v Superman gets it, but because of how steady of a decline it's had, I think it's going to be overdone. I think something's going to get higher than it, and I'm going to go ahead and say it's going to be The Boss. with Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Bell and Peter Dinklage. I think that's probably going to... I know it's an R-rated comedy. Those don't tend to do as well. But I think in this particular case, it's going to come in at number 1. So coming in at number 2, again, comparing it, I think I'm going to stick with Batman v Superman at number 2. I think that one is going to do better. I think Hardcore Henry, though it looked interesting, I think it only looks interesting to a select audience, so I don't think it's going to bring in as much. Whereas Batman v Superman, you get Batman, Superman icons, superhero icons. They might be able to draw a little bit more in. So Batman v Superman at number 2. Number 3, I'm going to say Zootopia. I think that one's going to hold on really well. Number 4, I'm going to give it to Hardcore Henry. And then number 5, I'm going to go Big Fat Greek Wedding 2. So those are my thoughts. Again, probably dead wrong, but what you gonna do? But yeah, go ahead and let me know in the comments what you think will come in number 1 this weekend, because this could be the weekend where Batman v Superman does lose out. I don't think it's gonna get eliminated from the top 5. I think it definitely could stay in number 1, and I want to say it stays in number 1, but I gotta go ahead and go with the boss, which is probably the safer bet. So anyway, moving on from there, we are going to be getting into a little spoiler territory for Batman v Superman and a plot element of it. So if you don't want to avoid spoilers, just click ahead to when you no longer see this image. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Speaking with IGN, Zack Snyder addressed an issue of why Superman didn't hear Martha Kent's cries for help with his superpowered hearing, which is that's a problem that some people had with the film. And he says, quote, "I think all the way to me from Metropolis to Smallville is probably just on the edge of his range of hearing," he explained. Also, the clutter of the city makes it difficult as well. He goes on to say that there was a scene for the film, but that they ended up getting rid of it, cutting it out, saying that we had a scene that we cut from the movie where he tries to look for her when he finds out that Lex got her. It was a slightly dark scene that we cut out because it sort of represented this dark side. Because when he was looking for his mom, he heard all of the cries of all the potential crimes going on in the city, when you look. Then he goes on to say that he kind of likes the idea that he's taught himself not to look, because if he looks, it's just never ending, right? You have to know when, as Superman, when to intervene and when not to. Or not when not to. You can't be everywhere at once. Literally, you can't be everywhere at once. So he has to be real selective in a weird way about where he chooses to intervene. Now, I want to go a little bit on this because, first of all, this was a problem that some people had because they were like, oh, well, Superman, why doesn't he just find her? Why doesn't, he use that hearing of his and be able to find her or what have you? So I like the notion that, well, maybe he couldn't just find her because there is this is a big city, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of stuff happening, and it'd be kind of hard to just pinpoint when you have all that coming at you at once. It's hard to do that, and we don't know what Superman, the full potential, what he can and can't do in these films yet. He hasn't been around as much. So I actually like that, and this is kind of curious on whether this scene will be put into the extended cut that we're getting in July, I believe. So that's all interesting. The part of it that probably would rub people the wrong way is when he starts talking about Superman, when to intervene and when not to intervene, or being selective in any form or fashion, because that goes against the character of Superman as we've come to know from the comics and stuff like that. Now, this is a different interpretation of Superman, for sure. So you're going to have differences, and you're either on board with that or you're not. But it is still interesting that maybe the way he phrased it wasn't quite the way he meant it, but it is quite interesting to see his view on Superman in this way, and to know that Superman isn't always going to be Superman. He's going to pick, I guess, and how does he pick and stuff like it brings up a lot of questions or what have you. So I don't know. I thought that whole conversation was quite interesting and gave us a little insight into the character, as well as some of the stuff that was cut out and we might see in the future. All right, this next one is going to be quite short. I said in the last one about how there were reshoots being done for Suicide Squad. There was speculation of putting more humor into it to make the tone lighter in response to the response that Batman v Superman was getting. And so Jai Courtney, in an interview with Entertainment Tonight, kind of talked about these rumors and reshoots that were supposed to add levity to the film. And he said that, I think there's plenty of humor in it. I wouldn't say we're going back to make it funnier. There's some additional action stuff that we've been doing, which is pretty dope. Really, we're just kind of adding in that sense. Now, I tend to believe what he's saying. I think that's pretty accurate, honestly. I think that's what they're doing, is they're going and they're just going to add more action scenes to it, maybe change a few things up here or there. But as I said before, all these movies end up having reshoots. Movies have reshoots all the time. So, and the fact that the trailer might have had all the jokes in it, I just don't buy into it given the characters that we're seeing in this movie. So I think it's going to have plenty of humor, maybe a darker humor, but I think it's going to have plenty of humor. And I think overall, this is definitely a movie to look forward to. And I buy what Jai Courtney is saying. I have no reason not to. Okay, so this next bit is going to be a little short. Basically, we got some posters. We got XMen Apocalypse character posters of Magneto, Psylocke, Storm, Xavier, Mystique, Beast, Jean, Quicksilver, Nightcrawler, and Cyclops. So, yeah, we got all that. There were actually posters that were released earlier in the week that I'll try to find to put on here as well. I think those are much better than these. I don't think these are bad. You got some neat little effects going on. I mean, some of them are better than others because there's more action involved, and I'm always a fan of seeing an action taking place in the poster versus just a pose. But I think they're fine. The fact that there's this many is kind of like, we didn't really need it, but cool nonetheless. But the better ones, I think, are for World of Warcraft, or I guess just Warcraft, which, we have several images from here. I like the different character designs that they have for the orcs and for the people involved. I think those look pretty cool. More importantly than that, you get the visual style of it, but you also get some of the background as well. So it's kind of world building at the same time. And I don't know, it just looks really neat. I was a big fan of the first Warcraft game. It came out to PC, and then Warcraft 2. I didn't get as involved with World of Warcraft as I did with the Warcraft games, but the trailer looked interesting. The movie hopefully is good. These are really, I think, well done posters. The visuals of it, the color, even some of the stances that you get for the characters, everything surrounding the designs of the costumes, the lighting on certain ones, it all looks really cool. And it definitely sells me for this movie, which comes out on June 10th. So I think all that works quite well for it, and it just definitely helps to sell the movie. the XMen Apocalypse one is, those are fine, but they just don't sell me any more on the movie than I already am. So, of the two, definitely go with Warcraft. All right, this next bit of news is going to be a little short. Edge of Tomorrow 2 is now a thing. It's happening. You got Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt that will be coming back to the film, as well as Doug Lineman or Lehman rather, who did the first one. So basically, you're getting the same people back that did the first one, and that's actually cool. Like, I mean, Edge of Tomorrow, for those of you that don't know my opinion on it, I thought it was a really good movie. Now, I had never seen Groundhog Day, so that probably did help in a way, because I know there's obviously a big similarity between the two. But that being said, that this was a really good movie, and if you're going to do a sequel, which I don't really think you need to, and I'm not entirely sure you should, but if you are going to do it, all the best to bring the same team on. So that's really cool, and I gotta say, I'm looking more forward to it now that I know this, versus if this wasn't the case at all and they'd gotten someone else in entirely new. So yeah, definitely looking forward to this. Hopefully it's as good as I'm already imagining it to be. Moving on from there, for those of you interested in Fast and Furious 8, which is said to go into production soon, ready to go into production for a release date of April 14th, 2017. Good news. Charlize Theron is apparently going to join this movie. It's going to be directed by F. Gary Gray. So we're not entirely sure whether she's going to be a good guy or bad guy for this film yet. Overall, I mean, I know she's going to be an adversary. That was tweeted out earlier, but I'm not sure if that makes her an actual villain or if she's just going to be maybe another member of the government that's against her. I don't know, but always good to add talent. She most certainly is talent, and this is one of those things where it's like, awesome. Yeah, I mean, why not? Not that the Fast and Furious franchise doesn't have talent in it, because I think it does, but to get this kind of pedigree of talent behind your movie could be interesting. I wonder if it's going to change the tone in any way, or if it's simply going to remain as it is, which is fun, over the top action type popcorn flick, you know, who knows. But all the same, I really like this news. I think it's great, and I look forward to seeing her in this film, because I like seeing her in any film that she does. So, you know, she's a talent that's well appreciated in this. For those fans out there of anime, I know you exist because I'm one of you. Apparently the Death Note movie is definitely moving forward as far as becoming an actual movie. It's moving closer and closer to that. But it was dropped by Warner Brothers, and according to Variety, Netflix has now come in and picked it up and is aiming to start production on it this June. So they're in final negotiations to acquire this R-rated adaptation. There's a few other companies that are interested in it, because for whatever reason Warner Brothers decided to drop it. But you have Paper Town star Wolf, who leads the film alongside Margaret Qualley from The Leftovers. But yeah, it looks like Netflix is here to save the day and get another awesome, I hope to be awesome, movie to add to it, and I think that's really cool. They're making a lot of kind of big choices and a little risky in a way, because Death Note is well known over in Japan. I don't think it's as well known here, but it looks like they have a lot of cool ideas going with all the stuff that they're getting, like the next David Ayer film, Bright, starring Will Smith and Joel Edgerton, which they got for $90 million. So, it's I don't know. It's just really interesting to me. It's really cool. It's definitely appealing for me looking at this as, hey, I'm going to get to watch this because of Netflix. I think Netflix has done a lot of good choices, like picking up the last season of Clone Wars. I've heard great stuff about Beast of No Nation. There's Orange is the New Black, Marco Polo, all these things that they've done. It seems like this is just going to add to it. That's what I'm hopeful for. And as a fan of at least a good portion of Death Note, I'm most certainly looking forward to this and seeing if this could in some way be better. That would be really cool. Okay, one last story before what I consider the big one, and you're going to know that by the image that I put on here. But there was a interview with Entertainment Weekly where J.J. Abrams explained that there's more going on with the Table of Ashes and the scene in The Force Awakens than simply having it there to be there. So what he said was, sometimes bits and pieces of one scene end up being somewhere that you use in another scene that you didn't expect. That's always kind of fun when you realize that something you shot actually has a use you didn't expect. So with that, the interrogation scene at Starkiller Base where Kylo's talking to Rey, he takes off his mask and he puts it down in a table of ashes. The whole thing about that was it was actually intended for another sequence. And he says the backstory is that that table has the ashes of the enemies he's killed. That moment was actually shot for and meant to be used in the scene where he was talking to the Vader mask. So he goes on to talk about how originally he took the mask off earlier in the movie than what he ended up doing, what have you. Yeah, I mean, that's the gist of it. Now, the interesting thing for obviously is, whoa, those are the ashes of his victims he's keeping around. Like, what the hell? Yeah, that definitely changes his character in a way. It makes him a bit more psychotic. And now, the curious thing, too, is how does this deal with canon? Because just because Abrams is saying it, it wasn't established in the movie. Was it established in the book somewhere to try to make it canon? Or, because he said it, is it canon? Like, how does this play out? I don't know. But the fact that that's what they intended, the fact that they maintained at least it being ashes, the reason for it being there, what have you, not really important at the moment, but just the fact that it's there is interesting. Now, getting to the importance of that, to know that it's his victims, and they're in an interrogation like cell area, right? They're in an interrogation room, and you have him keep the ashes of his victims there. That definitely says a lot about the character, and I think that might have helped some people's perception of the character. Hard to say overall, given how the rest of the movie played out. But I don't know. I thought that's really cool information, and I'm very curious to whether or not that is something that can can be construed as just canon based on what he's saying, or if it's in the book. So if you've read the book and you know this, please let me know. And finally, getting into that teaser trailer. Yes, there was a Star Wars teaser trailer. Rogue One, a Star Wars story. So, that dropped, and I, like everybody else on the internet, probably watched that right off the bat. My overall thoughts on it was it looked awesome. A lot of cool imagery going on. Ooh, I gotta watch out. I don't know if y'all heard that or not, but apparently I need to watch out. That's what Navi's saying. Anyway, going back to this, there's a lot of really well done shots. There's a lot of things that are shown to a certain scale, like the AT-ATs or AT-ATs, whatever you want to call them. The whole Death Star plans and everything didn't seem like that interesting of a story on paper, at least for me, but seeing it in action, really cool. I mean, Felicity Jones, she has a cheesy line. I'm not going to count that against her or against the film in any way, because that could always work better once I see it within the context of the film. But having other people in it like Jiang Wen or Donnie Yen's characters, Ben Middleton's character, the villain or what have you. You get a shot of someone walking towards the Imperial Royal Guards. Not sure who that is, so I don't know if that's Vader or not. I don't know. The whole, again, concept of stealing the plans didn't seem that entertaining, but we get these new stormtrooper outfits going on. You get some battle scenes that are pretty good. Having Forrest Whitaker give his little speech was quite cool. All the visuals of it look very nice, and it does look a bit gritty, and it looks like it could be dark. And then having Grand Mothma show up and being the same actress that was in Revenge of the Sith, I think is really cool, and she definitely looks the part. So having all that happen, and this is just a teaser. We're bound to get an actual trailer for it, but I don't know, just to see all the grit and everything going for it, I think this movie, I don't want to get too high of hopes on it, but I think this movie has a lot to offer just based off of this alone. It's got me real invested, and I want to see that. I want to see how it plays out. I think this is closer to the film that I would hope for in a Star Wars film, which is interesting because I know a lot of people had problems with the prequels because they were not overall the tone, and everything. It doesn't feel like the original trilogy, so it doesn't work. Don't know if how this movie's going to play out, but by the teaser, it doesn't actually feel like the original trilogy either. It has pieces from the original trilogy, but it doesn't really feel like it's the same thing. So I wonder how their reaction's going to be with that. And I know some people are already complaining because they're like, oh, well, the main character's a woman. Gosh darn it, Disney, with your feminist ways going after women superheroes and all this stuff. Okay, first counter to that is look at Ezra and Rebels done by Disney. Just saying. Look at Jungle Book coming out. Mowgli. They didn't fix that and be like, oh wow, so it's a girl now. I'm just putting it out there. Just because it happens to be a female character doesn't mean that Disney has some type of feminist agenda. I didn't even get that. I didn't get that at all. I didn't even really notice her. And yes, I noticed in the basic sense, but just her being a woman, I saw her as a character. I was like, hey, I want to see this character. And then people were in it. Some people were in an uproar over it. I was like, oh yeah, Rey was in the last one, and she's in this one. So, yeah, you're right. 2 women characters. Huh. Who would have thought? But it didn't mean anything to me. And it still doesn't. It's like characters are characters. Men or women, culture, race, anything like that. Doesn't really matter to me as long as the character's well done. And I want to see this character. I want to see this film. It looks like it has a lot to offer. Again, based solely on a teaser. So I'm extremely excited for this, guys. I want to see this. I listed my top 10 anticipated a while back. This didn't even make the cut because I didn't have anything to go on. It was strictly a Star Wars as a title, as a franchise. That was it. I mean, yes, I had a pick, and I had some casting here or there, but I didn't really have anything to work with there. And seeing this, it would totally change some of my list up because I would put it on there because this does a lot for me. This is really cool. As a Star Wars fan, as a guy who has loved pretty much everything Star Wars. Most things Star Wars, like 90% of stuff that's Star Wars that I've seen and read, I really love to various degrees, but I like it all the same. Star Wars is awesome for me. But to see this trailer, yeah, it gets me really hyped up. I really want to see this movie now. Ugh, I gotta wait a while. This sucks. Anyway, we've gone on long enough. That is my thoughts. That is all the movie news that I am going to go over for this week. So did I miss anything? If there's anything that you want to discuss with me, either about what I've gone over or what you want to, or something you want to talk about that I didn't get to, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. Also, what were your thoughts of this trailer? Have you seen it? If you haven't, I will try to provide a link to it for sure. Go check it out, please. And yeah, like I said, that'll wrap this up. So hopefully you enjoyed this vid. Click that like button, share, subscribe to my channel. Watch my other vids. I do appreciate it. And until next time, peace.